Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Jimmy here with a really great question for you guys regarding filming. Digital Dimples writes in, okay, so what lens would you recommend for filming with the Xt1? I want something really sharp. I struggle heavily during focus during filming. I would love to read your thoughts. Thank you for writing in Digital Dimples. I really appreciate that, and we have the opportunity to share the answer with everyone out there. So I hope you guys get something from it and Digital Dimples' question. First of all, I get the feeling that you're really down on yourself about focusing. It's not just you. You should know that. Everyone has trouble focusing, and because focusing is the name of the game, focusing is paramount, okay? People have trouble focusing even when it comes to taking still frame photography. Focusing is an issue. Can you imagine how much harder it is to focus when you're doing video? Oh yeah, it's really hard. What you're not seeing is if you're comparing yourself to people on commercials and movies and independent films, you're always thinking, man, if I buy a DSLR camera or a mirrorless camera, I'll be able to make films like that and get things in focus all the time. That's not how it works. What you're not seeing is there's one person filming, there's another person just his only job, her only job, or whoever it may be, is to move the focusing ring from point A to point B, literally millimeters or to an inch. That's it. And behind them are two more people looking at a screen or a monitor, making sure everything is always in focus. There's a team of people making sure things are in focus. It's hard. And you think they get it the first time? They don't. Because the actor sometimes sucks, they cut here and there, but mainly they cut because they have to choreograph the movement all together and work in sync together that everything's always in focus all the time. The moment the actor moves from point A to point B, it changes the plane of focus. So that's why the movement has to be in sync so that the person always remains in focus, the subject. Okay? Just know that they're rehearsing it over and over again, very similar to a dance with another person. So just knowing that even they screw up, these big production teams for these amazing commercials and products you see on television, they're rehearsing over and over again. So even they have trouble. If you're not filming things like commercials or independent films, and if you're filming stuff like family functions, whatever it may be, bar mitzvahs or kids playing outside in the snow, that's a totally different thing, okay? So you want to make sure that things are in focus that way. There are ways to address that. But just know what I'm trying to get here is that it's not just you that has issues focusing, it's everybody. So what are some lenses that you can get? This is the main question that you had. What lens can you get to magically make things in focus, right? I'm sorry to tell you, but this channel is all about using what you got and learning how to use that first before buying more expensive stuff that you won't know what to do with, okay? Chances are, if you have an Xt1, the lenses you have are more than enough and they're all crystal clear. You just have to learn how to use it better and rehearse it a few times if that's what you need to do, if that's the kind of shot you're going for. The lenses you have work fine. Just know that. It's not the lens's fault. I wish I could say that. Buy more, throw more money at your camera. Buy more lenses. Buy the newest one out, the new weather-resistant lens. It's all going to be taken care of. Nope. I'm sorry. You're going to have the same issues as you did before in terms of focusing. Okay? It's just going to be you. Maybe you can turn on the facial recognition and do it that way. Maybe you can have someone move the lens, the manual focusing ring for you as you adjust if you're doing those kinds of shoots. There are other solutions I'm going to get to in a second, but all lenses are just fine. So I'm sorry to tell you, there is no special lens out there that will take care of all your focusing needs. So let's get into some solutions that we can go ahead and put into action here so that we can always, since all lenses are probably going to be fine and the camera that we have is probably going to be fine, how can we make sure that everything's going to be in focus that we want things to be in focus? Okay, the first step is to rehearse. You can rehearse the movement if you're doing a film and you know exactly what's happening with your focusing ring. Okay, you move from here to here. I'm going to move the focusing ring from here to here. You're moving from in to out or out to in. I'm going to move back a little bit and making sure, okay, you're going to do that over and over again? Okay, great. Let's go ahead and get that. Okay, cut. Let's do that one more time. 2 more times. Boom, boom. Got it. All right, next shot. If you're going to do it that way, then that's one way to make sure that things are in focus, just by strictly rehearsing it like a dance with choreography. Here's another way to make sure things can be in focus when you're videotaping with your DSLR or mirrorless camera. I find that a lot of people just kind of set things on a very large aperture on their cameras, thinking that's the best way to go. In my opinion, when you get a large aperture, what they mean that is like, say, a 1.4 or 2 on your aperture setting here. Okay, this is a prime lens. You see the 1.4 right there, which set it right now? As you scroll this way, the aperture is getting smaller and smaller. The number seems to be getting bigger, although those are fractions. The lens actually gets a smaller aperture. So it's going from 1.4 to a much smaller aperture like this. And the smaller aperture, the less light can come through, the more light you're going to need to make up for it, right? I'm getting into a different topic here altogether. My point is, most people just leave it at 1.4, a very big aperture. Why do they do this? It's because they see movies and they see other people's pictures where the person's face is in focus and everything's always blurred out in the background. And we perceive this as very beautiful. It is a very beautiful shot, but I think it's overdone. Everyone's always doing that bokeh, the background blurring thing. Just because you're doing that does not make it a good picture. I'll tell you that right now. I've seen a lot of great pictures and a lot of great videos where everything's always in focus. So please do experiment with that. And why is this important? Because messing around with your aperture can make sure that your focusing is in focus, that you can be able to focus from here on out. If you leave it at 1.4, what that is a very shallow depth of field. It's this thin. Think of it as like a piece of glass. It's this thin, and within that piece of glass, no matter how you look at it, it's a very thin slice. Whatever is here, okay, right here, is going to be in focus. Okay, if you move your camera but you leave it the same aperture, my ear is going to be in focus, but my eyes are going to be out of focus. This happens all the time when I'm taking pictures. Now, that's what I'm trying to say is a very shallow depth of field, a very large aperture is very unforgiving when you're doing video. Okay, you can only do that when you have a tripod going and the person's very rehearsed and the person's not moving, it's very still and you're very still. You can calculate, okay, if you stay very still and I stay very still, I can have a very large aperture because you're not going to go anywhere. Everything's very constant. But if I'm moving about, you don't know what I'm going to do in this interview, right? You want to have a more forgiving range of depth of field, right? Instead of that very shallow, razor sharp depth of field where only the eyes and the nose are in focus, why not deepen that depth of field a little bit? That way, if I move back and forth a little bit, right, just like that, my eyes and my nose don't go out of focus because you set it from 1.4 to maybe something like this. Okay, and it's kind of like you're opening your eyes really big. You can't really see too much except that one thing. If you look at your finger with your eyes really big, everything behind it's very much out of focus. But if I squint down a little bit, things start to get more in focus, right? And there's more forgiving. I'm not really missing anything. And that's what you gotta do with your camera. So if you're having trouble, let's say, if you're doing an independent film, you're doing very calculated shots, a very large aperture, a very shallow depth of field is probably going to work because you're going to rehearse it over and over again until you get it right. But if you are doing, let's say, a basketball game where kids are moving in and out and you just want to kind of get the majority of it in focus, or a wedding, for example, without getting in the action and ruining things, try making your aperture a little bit more narrow. Leave it on the 5.6, for example. Instead of here, try leaving it over here. Now, the depth of field just went from very sharp, very narrow and unforgiving to much deeper. More things are going to be in focus all the time. Here's another tip that you can do to make sure things are in focus. I kind of alluded to this earlier, but using a tripod is very important. Using a tripod can make sure that things are very still and that the person's not going to move in and out of frame, in and out of focus too much, especially if this is a very calculated shot. For example, I'm in a very calculated, predictable environment right now. I'm in front of the camera, I'm not going anywhere, and no one's here to help me, so I'm just putting it on a tripod and I'm staying very still, so the camera knows what I'm going to be doing. I can just set it like that, and everything's being focused. And that's what I'm doing right now. So a tripod can definitely help you with that. Here's another very important point when it comes to focusing with pictures as well as video. There's a lot of parallels here that you can draw when it comes to video and pictures. Focusing needs are the same. They're both very, it's very important in both. Okay, so when there's a lens like this, okay, and you can adjust the focusing point like I mentioned in a previous video. You can adjust the focusing point from here to here to here, all the way around, all the way to the center, a little off center, wherever you want it to be. On the outliers of the lens has less ability to focus as well compared to being more towards the center of the lens. Makes sense, right? A little bit. What I'm trying to say is when you adjust the focusing point, if you like things being a little off center like this, and your things are in focus, your camera is not going to be as reliable as if the focusing point was more towards the middle. That's just kind of what I want to impart to you guys. I had a lot of trouble focusing once, and I didn't know why. It was taking forever to focus. I was like, what the hell's going on? Something wrong with my camera? What are my settings? It's because I was focusing more on I was putting my focusing point on the outside instead of concentrating more in the center, where the lens is stronger, has a stronger ability to focus quicker and stronger, and has a clearer focus. Okay, so be aware of where your focusing point is. One last point I want to make to you guys is that what I do when it comes to video, I use a camcorder. A camcorder is a fantastic way to get great shots and make sure things are in focus. Sometimes a camcorder can just do things a camera can't in terms of video. So some people feel like a camcorder is kind of outdated. Well, I have an HD camcorder right now, and it's working really well for my needs. I like to keep my photography and my camcorder and my video very separate, and that's what I do. That's why I don't use the Xt1 for filming. I use the G20. Okay, I use this HD camera here, and it works really well. I use it all the time, especially for these types of videos here where it's on a tripod. I can control my environment, or I want to make some candid videos of my dogs, and they come out great. And it's the same thing. You need to have a lot of light, and you make sure that things go in focus all the time. Always have a lot of light, and make sure that things are steady, and you have the right settings to make sure things are in focus all the time. And the camcorder can do a lot of things when it comes to focusing. It's more intuitive. It has more of a thinking brain in it that your camera just can't do sometimes. So when people say, oh, the camcorder is outdated, everyone uses DSLRs now with a prime lens on it, that's not always true. A camcorder can do a lot of documentary type style video. You can do a lot of interviews with it. And so definitely look into a camcorder if you're having still a lot of issues or don't have the patience to work with your mirrorless camera when it comes to manual focusing. Just so you know, a camcorder like this one, you can do manual focusing on this as well. You can get the nice background blur if you wanted to. The technology is awesome on these camcorders, and I got it refurbished. So, and there's nothing better than buying refurbished because you can get it at a big discount, and you know that someone else already looked at it to make sure everything works well, and it comes with a great warranty. So definitely look into a camcorder and think about it, that it might help you with your projects. And the Fuji can be for your still frame, and your Canon Vixia HFG20 can be for your camcorder. So yeah, Digital Dimples, all camera lenses work fine in terms of focusing. It's probably just going to be you. I just want to make this final point though. What if I did tell you that there was one particular lens that you need to buy, that this costs like, $500, it's the 55 to 200, and you need to use this to get extra clear, crisp focusing? Would you buy it? I'm not sure if you would, especially if you bought a mirrorless camera that was smaller in profile to make sure things are more convenient for you. Would you really slap this on? Would you walk around with this huge lens and if I told you that it was the best lens to buy? Probably not. It would take up too much room. It would be more cumbersome to take video with, just to shoot video with it, especially if I told you it was the sharpest lens out there. It's a good thing that all lenses are sharp. It's a good thing that you don't need this in particular. I use this for to zoom in on things, but I wouldn't say necessarily that it's the sharpest lens out there in terms of helping you with your focus. They're all great, and you're gonna have to find out how to use the lenses that you already have before buying more and more stuff, thinking it's the magic pill for focusing needs. Okay, so let me know how that goes. Screw around with your aperture, make sure you have a lot of light when you do, and you don't have to go too narrow, just narrow enough, and you'll see it's more forgiving when it comes to your subjects moving in and out, especially if you're doing that kind of shooting. A prime lens works great. They all work great. And get a tripod if you don't have one already, and look into a camcorder if that's really the kind of shooting that you're going to do. And one last point, guys, I've already harped on. Having a nice background blur is not appropriate all the time. Okay, you want to have a good mix of different shots here and there, and a camcorder can do all that. As a matter of fact, any camera can do that. Just mix it up a little bit, experiment with the aperture, and I'm sure you'll find that your focusing will definitely improve. Thank you so much, guys, for listening. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.